Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. Yesterday, I talked about the importance of honesty in relationships with psychiatrists, and today I want to talk a little bit about expectations for relationships with therapists, counselors, or psychologists. These relationships, a lot of times, we go in expecting the same kind of relationship and quick fix that we might have with a general doctor. So in Western medicine, a lot of times we'll go to a doctor with some kind of ailment, and the doctor will diagnose us, give us a prescription, and then send us on our way. And we take the prescription, hopefully we get better, and that's all there is to it. And we go into therapy expecting the same kind of results. A lot of times people get frustrated when they see that that's not quite the way therapy works. We don't see this quick fix happening. We don't go into 1 hour of therapy and then come out completely changed individuals. And so I personally had to change some of my expectations about therapy and the way it works and what I should be doing in therapy in order to get the most out of it. So here are the expectations that I had to develop to make the most out of my relationship with my therapists and counselors. Number one was that therapy is going to be a more collaborative effort than I'm used to in Western medicine. So in typical relationships with doctors, I'm used to going and saying, here's what's wrong with me, tell me what to do to fix it. And that's not typically the way therapy works. In therapy, there's going to be more of a collaborative effort, and it's more of a mutually explorative effort between you and the therapist. A lot of talking to try to better understand the root cause of some of the issues that you might be going to see the therapist for. And that brings me to the second expectation, which is I went to therapy wanting answers. And actually, a good therapist I've found is asking a lot more questions than they are giving you answers. In fact, the more experience that I get in therapy, the more wary I am of therapists who feel like they do have answers to the problems that I'm having. Most of the therapists that I go see ask a lot of questions and spend most of their talking time asking me questions that are helping me better understand whatever it was I came in for. So what they are able to provide then is the third expectation, which is tools and resources. So, a lot of the problems that we go in to see a therapist about are not problems. They're very personal. They have to do with the way we approach life and with the way we were brought up and with all sorts of things that are in some ways outside of our control and outside the therapist's control. And one of the things that a therapist can do is to teach us ways to cope with life and ways to navigate life rather than giving us answers on how to fix the way we feel. And so what I expect from a therapist is tools and resources that I can use. And some of the tools and resources that I've received from therapists are things like relaxation exercises, very similar to meditations, things like that. And these relaxation exercises have helped with my anxiety, depression, and obsessive compulsive disorder. I had one therapist who even enhanced that process by giving me biofeedback, where as I tried to implement these relaxation exercises in his office, I was hooked up to a machine that would give me feedback when I was doing things, when my body was reacting in a way that showed that what I was doing was working. And that was very, very helpful. This same therapist gave me information to read, not pamphlets, but documents that he had created that outlined information about things like, for example, why do I get stressed out? Not why do I as an individual get stressed out, but why do people in general get stressed out? What is that response about? What's the fear at the base of that response? And what are we really trying to accomplish in therapy? We're not trying to get rid of stress. We're trying to decrease the amount that we feel. And so getting those kinds of tools, those kinds of resources really helped me to better understand the approach we were taking and what we could focus on when we were in the office together for just 1 hour out of, 1 week or 2 week period that I was seeing him. And then the next expectation is that I'm going to take those tools that we learn about and do some homework with those and actually use those outside. And this is where I used to fail all the time. My therapist would say, okay, you need to go and practice your relaxation exercises 15 minutes a day. I never did that. Well, that was the prescription. That was the doctor saying, if you do take this medicine, I expect to see some improvement. And I never gave that a chance. And I think a lot of people do the same thing, because in Western society, we have this inclination that if it's not in a pill, then I can choose how to use it however I like. And sometimes we choose how to use the pills however we like too. So we really need to be dedicated in a relationship with a therapist to follow their directions on the homework that they give us the same way we would follow directions on the side of a prescription bottle. A last expectation that I had to have was that there was going to be timely, regular follow-up, at least until whatever situation I came in to see the therapist for in the first place had stabilized. That's another place where I had problems. I would go to the therapist one time and I'd feel better, because usually you feel better after talking to someone about your problems, especially if they give you a sympathetic ear. And I'd feel better, and I'd end up canceling the next appointment because I felt okay. I felt fine. I think things are better. And then, things would spiral out of control, and I'd try to make another appointment. He wouldn't have one available for 2 weeks, and it was just a mess. And what I would need to really do is have an appointment every couple weeks and stick to that schedule until I really got to a point where both of us felt like I had stabilized and was at a point where continuing therapy didn't make a lot of sense, and maybe decrease the amount of follow-ups to once a month, and then after that as needed. But the big expectation there is that there needs to be some kind of regular follow-up, especially as you're trying to get the situation to stabilize. And you can't stabilize most situations that you're going to see a therapist for in just one session with that therapist. So those are the expectations that I had to realign myself to when I started to see therapists, especially after I came into recovery. I realized that I'd really not been very mindful of those kinds of expectations in my addiction, and I needed to reset a little bit what I expected that relationship to look like, what my role was in that relationship, and the outcomes that I should expect to see as a result of that. That's it for today. I'll be back here tomorrow with more. Have a good one.